true player shit. We gon' make it live with Big Dom. We ain't holding no punches. True players, we live, homie, no frontin'. Always talk about something. So taking over, you know that the wait is over. That in your face commentary is fire in the show up. We talk about sports, finance, and relationships. True players, we always playing the greatest hits. 1804, that mean Hades lit. Mothers still the true players like baby kicks. Our live podcast is hard as hard hats. Real life shit, that true players will talk that. So tune in and watch the whole world zoom in when it hits.
What's good, everybody? It's man Big Dog coming live at you, another True Players podcast episode with my fellow guest hosts Carmine and Ricky Brown, hitting you guys up on the subject matter of Breonna Taylor. We've waited how many years? 2 years for some type of justice for Breonna Taylor, who was murdered while sleeping in her living room during the no-knock warrant. It really came down on the 23rd of September, saying that the officers will not be charged for a murder. However, they've been charged with, I believe, if Ricky, if you could just help me with this, what was the charge?
Okay. The one officer who ended up fired, his charge was wanton endangerment for endangering a neighbor with his shots.
Endangering a neighbor with a shot, but I don't see that how that happened since it seemed like they were inside the actual apartment when the shooting had gone down.
Well, see, now, here's
he was charged with his bullets going into the neighbor's apartment.
Oh, okay.
So he was endangering the neighboring apartments.
Right. His shots literally went into the balcony window, which is part of the reason why I was so confused about this story, because I wasn't following it fully. But
right.
I thought that he was outside and fired through the balcony door into the apartment. No, apparently he was in the apartment and fired out the balcony door.
Yeah, but
there was another officer. No, there was also another officer whose bullets went through the neighboring apartment's home. I think they're like a pregnant lady and her husband. They found bullet holes going through their apartment. So that was also one of the officers that was charged for endangering the neighbors.
Wow, a pregnant woman.
Yeah, a pregnant woman, her husband, and she had another child there. And that's why the news media had the headline, officer charged with bullets that actually didn't kill Breonna Taylor. So they were trying to say, like, in order for you to get justice, you actually, the bullets have to hit you. But there were bullets that did hit her. That's why she's not here. But it was a different officer. So therefore, that's my whole issue with this, is that why is it so difficult for them to find the shooting officers guilty with this whole case? Why is it hard for them for a jury or whatever the evidence? I just don't understand. Why is it so difficult to find them guilty? Because their bullets was actually the bullets that killed her.
The whole situation doesn't make any sense, because we worry about the neighbors, but what about the person that got shot in their apartment while they were sleeping?
Right.
That's an unanswered question, in which the Attorney General seems to not been able to answer fully.
And I wish they would give us more information on the case. I feel like there's too many hush information that's being held back. And I understand, it's the public. So I guess they don't want the public to know too many things. But at the same time, I feel like being that they are already putting so much out there, we might as well know what's really going on. Because a lot of us still have a lot of questions. I don't understand. Like, it just doesn't make sense. A lot of things in the story, far as the officers, the no-knock warrant, it was a no-knock warrant. So that means you did not announce who you were.
Nope.
And also, you went to the wrong place, the wrong apartment, the wrong house.
Well, see now
So,
the whole no knock and versus knock warrant is kind of at the heart of this case because it was originally a no knock warrant, but then that got changed, which means that they had to announce themselves. And supposedly, this is where the two stories basically conflict. According to Breonna Taylor's boyfriend Kenneth, I forget what his last name is, but according to him, there were violent knocks at the door, and Breonna asked multiple times, "Who is it? Who's there?" And they never announced themselves. They never said who they were.
yeah, they
Um,
didn't answer.
according to the type of warrant that they were issued, they were supposed to announce themselves. And if they did not announce themselves, well, then what they did was they failed to execute that warrant properly, and they broke the law. That would be the core issue, because if they were able to actually prove that these officers did not announce themselves, regardless as to what happened inside that apartment, that makes everything that happened inside that apartment on their shoulders and
Right.
rest on them.
And that's what they're trying to hide from the public. And that's the whole cover up. That's the whole cover up. That's the bottom line. That's honestly what I think it is. That's the whole cover up. That's why they took so long to get their case and their shit together. So that way, once Breonna Taylor's family came in with their attorneys, they were able to say, nope, this didn't apply. No, that's not what it shows on our paperwork. Like, you know what I mean? So that way they could cover their asses.
Mm-hmm.
But in the indictment, Breonna Taylor's not even listed as a victim. How about that?
Yeah, she's not.
And and again, we spoke about this on a previous podcast about criminalizing the victim. And it never stops. You're going to criminalize the victim, criminalize the circumstance that's involved. Listen, you knock into someone's house, you don't announce yourself, and a person is nervous. They have a fight or flight mentality. What do you expect them to do? Someone busts in my house. What do you expect me to do? Let you bust into my house?
And
There's
that's
going to be
what
some response.
And Kenneth Walker, that's what he said in his briefing, his speech or whatever. He said both of them asked a number of times, who is it?
Mm-hmm.
And there was no answer. So then that's when Kenneth Walker let off. Once the officers barged into the apartment, that's when Kenneth Walker let off the first shot, which was like a warning shot. And then once he let that off, they started shooting, and then he shot back.
So you
because
don't know
he let off a warning shot. They didn't start shooting as soon as they came through the door. Once he let off the warning shot, which didn't injure any officers, they started shooting. And then I think that's when Kenneth started defending himself, because at this point, he still doesn't know who these people are, who is entering the apartment.
They didn't announce themselves. That's why I feel that this don't knock warrant stuff should be disbanded, period, for the safety of everyone involved. So this shit like this doesn't happen again. It's just a sad situation. I mean, you lay in your apartment and you get killed by laying in your apartment by police officers. Not even a criminal, a police officer.
Yeah, this shit is really sad.
And you wonder why people are upset about the situation. You wonder why people are protesting. They're still protesting. I mean, you could get a whole lot of settlement money all you want, but our main objective as a people who are being constantly victimized by the same situation over and over again is to ensure that it stops. And that's
Thank you. Because with all due respect, settlement money, with all due respect, settlement money puts the price on a human life, and the human life is priceless. You can't do that shit.
And honestly, I don't know if it is gonna stop. I don't know if it is gonna stop, because I feel like these officers, a lot of them, there is something behind them where they feel like they can get off on certain things that they do. And that's why they continue to make these mistakes. A lot of these officers are not properly trained, but once they make a big mistake, somehow, some way, they're able to get out of it. Why? Because they have whatever the system is behind them that says, oh, well, you know, you're an officer, you're supposed to serve and protect. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. So you can make a mistake, but if the mistake that you make causes, you know, a life to be taken, it's kind of like it's telling them that it's okay that you made that mistake. Just, you know, just give them a slap on the wrist for taking someone else's life, a civilian's life who you're supposed to be protecting. I just don't understand how that goes hand in hand together. Like, why are they able to get away with a lot of these things? And a regular civilian, if a regular civilian had made this mistake, went into somebody's apartment who they didn't know by accident, right? And that person decided to stand their ground, and then they shot the people in the apartment, wouldn't they be in jail right now?
Yes.
That sounds awfully familiar, like that off-duty police officer that went to the wrong floor to the wrong apartment and then shot a dude living in his apartment.
Botham Jean.
Yeah, but she was an officer. That's why she didn't,
True.
you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like that blue shield protects them some way or somehow. Because if it was a regular person who did the same mistake, they would be in jail that night.
They would, yeah.
But check it out though. Didn't a black police officer kill a white woman by accident, and he's still in jail? He's still in jail.
Yeah, what happened with that?
He's still in jail. They did a whole petition to try to get him out, but it was accidental.
So you see how the law applies to one and doesn't apply to the other?
Of course, it's biased. It's America. I hate to sound so pessimistic when I say that, but you know, I think we even discussed earlier that, you know, this verdict is really no surprise. It's business as usual for this country.
That's exactly what I said. I was, you know, hopeful, you know, hopeful that they would have made an example and, you know, just not even made an example, just to show, like, we understand, you know, this young lady was actually, you know, a productive person in the community. She was, you know, this and this shouldn't have happened. But that's not how they took it. They took it as if, like, yeah, she's just another black person.
Just
another black
nigga.
person who accidentally got killed, and let's brush it under the rug and continue business as usual, give the family some millions of dollars so that way we can move on to the next subject.
Absolutely. But the thing is too, my problem is it's the amount of time it took to even get to a grand jury. This happened 2 years ago. We already know that then once it takes that much time for something that's so clear cut, what justice were we expecting from that? One. Two, it didn't matter that she was a first responder. Everyone said, oh, she was an EMT. It didn't matter. She was black.
Right.
And in their eyes, she deserved to die.
Wait, this happened 2 years ago?
About a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Almost.
Wow.
But unlike Eric Garner, when they fired Pantaleo after so many years, and he ended up going to jail for that, it didn't work this time. The officer still got off. And they got off on a charge that had nothing to do with Breonna Taylor or her death. It was all something else.
Yeah.
And you know, I said this when I went to look into the specifics of this whole situation, because I was unfamiliar with it. You know, because shots were fired through the balcony window, that the police officers were outside shooting into the apartment. If this one particular officer was shooting outside the apartment, or outside, or shooting from the inside of the apartment to the outside, what was the reason for that? Was it a and two things come to mind. One
Mm-hmm.
is that here you have an individual with a group of good old boys, and they're busting their guns, and he has to bust his gun too, so he just points it in a random direction and starts shooting. Or
Mm-hmm.
even worse, there's more officers outside because there's a warrant that needs to be executed. So he starts shooting outside to make them think that they're getting fired from inside the apartment. So now shots get fired inside the apartment.
Right.
Mm,
Mm.
that's a good theory. Because what if the officer, you're right, what if the officer who is standing outside, it's their gunshots that they heard thinking that it was coming from inside, and that's why they let
Yeah,
off so many ammo.
yeah, 32 shots, and that sounds. I mean, if you got three officers with 12-round clips, that leaves what, one in the clip for each officer,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe two in one of them. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but it just sounds like contagious shooting. Like it sounds like they're trying to empty their clips out.
I always thought they had 15 rounds per clip, but
Well, see, I'm not completely familiar with that. I
mm-hmm.
I just know a 12-round clip is something that's available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they have 15 rounds, though, that means only two officers would have been shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and the third one, which is probably the one that was outside, maybe let off 2 rounds or two shots.
But probably the one outside, what he was doing is like shots fired. He was like probably shooting his gun, shots fired. Officer shots fired at the officer, and probably got more backable up and just cover their ass to make up a story like, oh, this is what was going on. Someone was shooting at them, and
We heard
I heard
shooting, so we
gunshots.
started shooting.
Exactly.
And this brings me back to Baltimore here.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that Baltimore is not representative of the entire country. But one
Mm-hmm.
thing that we have instituted here that I'm thankful for is that the police in the city and in the county both wear body cameras,
Mm-hmm.
and that body camera footage is available to the public, and it is reviewable by anybody. The
Mm-hmm.
only time that it is not reviewable is when it's involved in a current ongoing case.
Mm-hmm.
So in this situation, me as an individual, I wouldn't be able to call over to the police department and say, "Hey, let me get a copy of the body camera footage," because the
Mm-hmm.
case is still going on.
Right.
But that is
However,
that's
however, the jury, the prosecutors, and everybody else that's involved in the case have access to this body camera footage.
Mm-hmm.
But
You
did they
know,
even, I don't even think they had their body cameras on. That's the thing. During this no-knock warrant, when they went into their apartment, are
well,
they
see, I don't,
supposed
I
to
don't
have
even, I
body
don't even,
cameras on though? During like
I don't even,
warrants and
I
stuff?
don't even know, if that city has body cameras instituted into
In
their police
Kentucky?
department. Yeah,
Because that's in Kentucky. Let me see.
right.
Exactly.
Louisville, specifically.
And
Mm-hmm.
Louisville Metro Police Department.
it seems like they came in plain clothes too. Were they in plain clothes or they were in uniform?
In my humble opinion, it shouldn't matter, because whether they were in plain clothes or uniform, they should have been wearing something to identify themselves as police
Shield.
officers, as well as having some type of body camera footage. I think that should be standard procedure for executing specifics of the job.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I
You know,
agree with that. Mm-hmm.
you happen to just walk out the police station and you're going to the 7-Eleven to get something to eat. You don't need a body camera on. But if you go to serve a warrant, you pull somebody over. I think that is the moment that you clock in and put that uniform on, you should have a camera on you,
Mm-hmm.
in my humble opinion. And if you're doing your job correctly, there shouldn't be anything for you to actually hide.
Okay, I just read that they were ordered to turn off their body cameras. Alleged, that's what was alleged in the court records that was filed. It says they were ordered to turn off their body cameras when they were serving the warrant.
Wow.
Who issues that type of order?
When it comes from the judge?
It would have to be a judge. They would have to. That would be the higher up of the office.
Would it be a judge or a commanding officer?
Well, the commanding officer would have to request that of the judge, because wouldn't, if the warrant has to go through the judge to get the warrant, would the general be like allowed to be like, oh, guys, turn off your cameras when you're going in there? Because if that's the case, then that's a hit. That's not really a warrant.
That's premeditated.
Yeah.
That's premeditated.
Because if that's the case, yeah, that was definitely something that was planned. That's a hit. But
execution.
why? Like, was it a hit in the wrong apartment, like they're saying?
Well, they claim the reason why
a lot of stuff just doesn't add up. It really doesn't make sense.
The claim was
supposedly the warrant that they were issued. Say that again, Don.
They were looking for a drug dealer. They're looking for drugs.
Right. And what isn't it? The drug dealer that they were looking for was not the boyfriend that was there that night.
It was not the boyfriend that was there that
night. Wasn't it her ex-boyfriend that they were looking for?
Her ex-boyfriend, exactly. In which I believe they had it in custody already.
What?
I read a report, so they had him in custody, I believe. I got to double check that, but I believe he was already in custody, I believe.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then this was a hit. If they already had the ex-boyfriend in custody, the ex-boyfriend must have said some bullshit and said, oh yeah, this is where I'm hiding the drugs, just so that way they could go to her house.
Absolutely. Didn't they say that she was like the queen pin? No, I won't say a queen pin, but she was
she wasn't the queen pin of anything.
she was involved in some shit like that. That's what the reason why they were there or something like that.
No. Well, then if I never heard anything like that. I didn't hear that at all. I didn't hear that she had any involvement with the ex-boyfriend.
But it's probably the stupid post that some guy put up about that situation, which I'm gonna talk about that a little later in the podcast. But
because a lot of people are making up stories as I don't know why. Maybe they're just adding their own flavor to certain stories.
Mm-hmm. And see, that's the sad part about this situation, is that none of us actually do have the full story.
No, we don't.
Yes,
but we're trying to fill in these holes.
We're trying to piece everything together.
Right. We want, because in our minds we want it to make sense. Like I said, when I heard about the police officer shooting at the balcony door, I assumed that the police officer was outside shooting into the apartment. Because that in my mind that made sense. Why would you be in the apartment shooting at the balcony door?
Right.
What good reason would you have? And that's the officer that got fired.
Was the one who shot Breonna?
No, the one that shot out the balcony door is the one that got fired. Yeah. Yes, the one that didn't kill Breonna is the one that got fired.
Sharing this story it just pisses you the fuck off.
Yeah, I feel like we're never gonna get the whole story, and that's the reason why they gave the family that amount of money, basically, so that way we can move on. Like they're never gonna know the real story. The family is not gonna know the real story. The public is not gonna know the whole story, and they're just giving them this money so that way we can continue on.
It's hush money. It's sit down in the corner, shut up, and be quiet.
Pretty much.
I have a
Bottom line.
I have a question for you guys. We see this attorney that's always prominent in all these big time cases, Mr. Ben Crump. Prominent. whether it was in Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, not Breonna Taylor. How do you guys feel about him and his involvement in these situations? Because for me, I find it to be a little bit interesting how we try to fight for equal rights. We try to fight for our safety as minorities, and we are the ones who are continually getting gunned down, whether it's at a party or in our own homes or at a traffic stop. This keeps on happening, and he's always at the forefront defending the families after the fact. Money don't bring a family member back.
Exactly.
How do you guys feel
Change does. Change will keep a family member from leaving this earth.
exactly?
Thank you. Thank you. And as far as that attorney is concerned, you know, I don't I'm not fully I'm not fully knowledgeable about the fact that he's been here for this case and here for that case, but he sounds like an ambulance chaser. He sounds like a new age ambulance
Yep.
chaser. You know,
Mm-hmm.
oh, nigga got gunned down. Let me pull out my card and offer my services. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, we talked about this before. He represents the family and then gets his little 33%. 33% of that 12 million is like $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
33% of 12 million.
It's at least $400,000.
It's 4 million.
I mean, 4 million. I'm sorry, 4 million.
4
4
million.
million. 4 million.
4 million.
My bad.
Mm-hmm.
He's become a millionaire with these cases. And the last thing I want to do, I don't want to hit. I don't. Me as a person who watches this goes on. I'm tired of the propaganda. We have to televise people's funerals and stuff to bring the pain of the family. I'm tired of that propaganda bullshit. It's time to come up with answers to stop this bullshit. That's what I want. That's the bottom line.
That's what we all want. That's what we all want. We don't want to keep hearing these same stories, these same sad stories of how this happened. Oh, this could have been de-escalated if the civilian would have done this, and if the officer. How about you guys either retrain all of your officers, which they're not gonna put all their money into retraining the officers, or you just have like something needs to be done. Something has to change, and that's the bottom line. The question is how to get these changes, to implement these changes.
I feel these officers before they even go to basic training, they need a psychological evaluation.
Thank you.
That's
Yes,
the most important thing. And
because a lot of them should not be officers at all. They should
I,
not be
I, I
carrying
think
guns.
I think all officers need continuous psychological assistance
Yes.
yearly,
because they are dealing with a stressful job to begin with. Let's
Mm-hmm.
not even let's not even look at the bad cops. Let's just look at the average do good police officer, the dude
mm-hmm,
who grew up in his neighborhood. He wants to actually
Right.
make a change in his
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood, and
mm-hmm,
he starts his shift and he goes to his first call, and it's some poor woman getting beaten by her husband, and he goes to
mm-hmm,
the second call, and there's some child that's been molested and being abused, and he goes to a
mm-hmm,
third call, and a brother killed a sister or a sister killed a brother. Like, that's some stressful shit that you have to
It
deal with,
is.
that you have to take home to your
Mm-hmm.
family.
right,
This is why a lot of police officers self-medicate, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be through drugs or alcohol, or like they need some type of downtime to unwind. A lot of them have rituals when they come into
Mm-hmm.
the house, like, don't even talk to me. They're probably going to go to the bathroom and sit on the toilet, not even taking a dump, just having a place where they could be alone for a couple of minutes and kind of process the
Mm-hmm.
day. That's stress.
Yeah,
mm-hmm,
it
That's
is.
stress. I, I
Yeah.
I believe that all officers need some type of psychological
Mental
um
health assistance.
mm-hmm,
assistance in some
Mm-hmm.
way, shape, or form. And that could prevent that do good officer from becoming one of those bad apples that spoil the whole bunch.
mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, because if you
I
got
agree.
if you got to go to work every day and you're constantly dealing with men that are abusing their women, the day is going to come along that a woman comes to you and says, "Hey, I need help," and the officer just pulls out his gun and just shoots the random motherfucker without
Right.
even hearing the story.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And I'm not making no excuse for nobody doing that, but you can see how that can gradually build up
Yeah.
and happen. You know, especially when you're dealing with people who are constantly put in a position to have a God complex.
Mm.
You know, to think that they are you know, that they're not just enforcing the law, but that they are the law. You
Right.
know, you know,
But
I'm gonna put that S on my chest and come save the day. Boom! I killed the bad guy. Oh, you killed the wrong guy, first of all. Well, she just pointed in that direction. You
Mm-hmm.
see how easily that and I'm completely being hypothetical here, but do you see how
Mm-hmm.
easily a
Mm-hmm.
situation like that can escalate?
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
you see what's going on now in Kentucky. Cops are being shot at now
Yeah,
during a protest. People are retaliating off this decision, and due to the fact that the attorney general, who is black of Kentucky, didn't bring the correct information to get an indictment of a crime in which, according to Ben Crump, I see as a post here. I'm just going to read you the exact quote. If Brett Hankinson behavior was wanton endangerment to people in neighboring apartments, then it should have been wanton endangerment in Breonna Taylor's apartment too. The fact that it should have been ruled wanton murder.
See? Mm-hmm.
And the issue with these cops is that I understand the police department is a big fraternity. It's a
it
big
is.
fraternity, a big
That's what it
society
is.
in which
Mm-hmm.
these guys are trained on telling each other. But I'm not asking you to tell. I'm not asking you to tell anybody. I'm asking you to hold your fellow brothers accountable for their wrongdoing. That's what I'm
Thank you.
asking you to do.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Because if you're upholding the law,
Right.
you're gonna uphold the law against the people who break the law, including your own coworkers, including your own fraternity brothers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What was that army
And
saying that something about foreign domestic or something like that? Um,
A well-armed militia has a right to defend itself from any enemy, foreign or domestic. I think that's
correct.
what the Second Amendment about the right to bear arms.
Correct. Correct.
and and a lot of times, right?
Mhm.
Like going back on to like holding these officers accountable, the way that I feel like these districts, these police districts are handling these officers is shipping them off to another district where they could do the same thing all over again, instead of actually, once you reprimand them or retrain them or reevaluate like their mental state to see if they're even fit to continue being on the force. Instead of doing that, they rather ship them to another unit.
See, that goes back to that psychological assistance that I suggest. You know,
My fear, my
if at least once a week every officer had an opportunity to sit down and just get shit off of their chest.
mhm.
You know, I'm not saying it's going to be a cure all, because you know, PTSD is something that we all have experienced with something in our lives. We
uh,
just
Mm-hmm.
don't associate it with being PTSD. We think PTSD only has to do with war trauma, you
military
know.
and
But
all
some,
that stuff.
but you know, you smacked your thumb with a hammer when you were 5, and now you don't want to do any type of carpentry work. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're suffering from
That's a
PTSD.
form of PTSD. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah. You know, you're traumatized. Now you have a
Mm-hmm.
stress associated with that trauma, and now in your adult life, you're still traumatized by some shit that happened when you were 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mhm.
how do we expect these officers to deal with this trauma that they're constantly going through, and still be able to keep a level head and still be able to, you know, discern the good from the bad?
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of officers arrive to any particular scene and already have a preconceived notion of, you know, how an individual is and how they're going to act. Why can't they have a a steady or a standard operating a set of standing operating procedures for all situations? You know what I mean? As opposed to saying, okay, well, I just happen to arrive on Ricky Brown Avenue, and I know that this is the hood, so I'm gonna treat all these people in this particular way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Which is, that's
why,
how they that's what they do though.
that's exactly what they do.
That's, yeah. And you're right. I agree with you. If some of these changes, if like these suggestions that you're making, these are logical changes that could be done. But are they going to invest in these changes? No, they're not, because
No.
it's gonna probably cost them money that they don't want to spend. It's probably gonna cost, like it's gonna be time consuming, and to them, they don't have time for it. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna find every excuse not to, not to take on these kind of changes that could, help the public. It will help not only the officers, but it will definitely help the public.
And this was something that I said way back when I was married the first time around, living down Edmondson Village. You know, I've realized, because of the fact that I look so much like a police officer, that everybody thought I was a police officer. The dudes on the corners thought I was a police officer. Like they'd start hiding their product and stuff when I would walk
They
by.
thought you was undercover.
Right, and then on top of that, I would have police officers just walk up to me randomly and start talking shop. Like, can you believe what's happening over at the 33rd? The 33rd what? The 33rd district? Like, nigga, I don't work with you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
So what happened on the 33rd district? Maybe
yeah,
Like,
give me some information. What's
yeah.
going on? But but because I had these dialogues that were brought to me, I found out that a lot of these police officers didn't live any place close to Baltimore City. Most of them lived in the state of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm. They're
How
not,
can
yeah,
you police a community that you have no
that,
connection to whatsoever?
right,
And
exactly.
if you're going to police my community, you should be a part of my community. That's just my
Mm-hmm.
humble opinion. And I understand that that's not necessarily the safest thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes sense to me that if Officer Brown is on Duthel Avenue,
Mm-hmm.
Officer Brown should be familiar enough with Duthel Avenue to walk up to my door and say, "Hey, Ricky,
Mm-hmm.
I need to talk to you about something,"
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
or "Hey, Carmen, it's it's getting late. Can I come in and use the bathroom real quick?"
Mm-hmm.
Police don't have this relationship with their communities. They have no connection with their
Mm-hmm.
communities. You know what I mean? And they, it only furthers that divide between the police and the community,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
where the community is no longer looked at as being the community. The community is just occupied territory, and
Mm-hmm.
anybody in that occupied territory is your enemy. And
And
that's how we're treated. We're treated like enemies.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. I feel like these officers need to be better educated on the communities that they're serving. If they were better educated on the communities where they are serving, I feel like there would be different outcomes. There would be so many different outcomes, because let's be real, like with certain officers who let me give this example. When you start a new job, right? When you
Mm-hmm.
start a brand new job, you have to go through the training process, right? But while you're
Right.
training, the person who's training you, aren't they telling you little things here and there that's not even part of the training, but they're giving you a heads
Right.
up? It should be the same concept. Okay, Officer Brown, you're going to be covering the such district, the 31st district, this is a predominantly Black community here, blah blah blah. You're gonna go with this person. This is gonna be your partner. He's gonna show you around, right? So that person who's showing him around should be like, yeah, these are the guys over here. They like hanging on the corner, but they harmless. Or over here, this house right here. Let's say we've been watching them. They have some in and out going on, blah blah blah. But they're working on, like just to give them little heads up, like this block here. This is not, what I'm saying. So this way
I do know what you're saying, and I want to say that in the more organized cities, that they do have some type of initiation program set up, and I mean the
that
more
educate
organized
the
cities,
officers,
right? But that doesn't make them perfect, though.
No.
Let's
and it's
take a
not
look
going
at
to be
two cities.
perfect.
Let's take a look at two cities here in the state of Maryland. You got Baltimore and you got Annapolis. Annapolis is the capital. I'm quite sure that same initiation process that takes place in Baltimore is not as rigorous or as informative as what takes place in Baltimore City, compared to what happens in Annapolis. And that's not to say that things don't get crazy or hectic down in Annapolis, because just because it's the capital does not make it immune.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a city. It's an area that's concentrated with a lot of people in it,
Mm-hmm.
and it may not be as big as Baltimore City, but a lot goes down there. At the end of the day, it's still on the Chesapeake Bay. It's still a tourist attraction. There's a lot of historical places down there. In fact, I think I told y'all before, up until a couple of years ago, the Ku Klux Klan used to march on the Annapolis Capitol building every 4th of July. Every
Really?
4th of July. Yes, welcome to south of the Mason-Dixon. Don't nobody here want to consider this the South, but that proved to me alone that Maryland is the South. The fact that you got the Klan marching on your capital every 4th of July, this is definitely the South.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
I didn't know that either.
You just educated me on that. That's crazy. When did it actually stop? Do you know? Like what? Like
I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. I just, from what I understand, it's no longer it's no longer a thing.
Prohibited.
At the end of the day, it's part of their constitutional right to be able to voice their opinion or whatever. So they had the ability to do it, so nobody actually stopped them. But from what I understand, the interest and attendance stopped, which is part of the which is more a part of the reason why they're no longer having it, as opposed to people petitioning and speaking out against it. Like in other words, they're not receiving the same energy to be able to keep it up, as opposed to people saying, you know what, we're sick of this and we don't want to see this anymore.
Right.
One thing I'm gonna mention too. How do we solve this issue? I think the thought that crossed through my mind is having the National Guard come in as checks and balances for the police department. Keep in mind one thing, though, what I just came to my mind is the National Guard is controlled by the president. We all know the Mr. 45 is incompetent as a president.
And sure is.
You sure you want that man to have power
That's the statement. Guard?
Because
absolutely not. This is the same person. I don't either, because this is the same person who said once the looting start, the shooting starts. So no, absolutely not. I don't think that's a good idea at all.
I thought about it, but as I realized who we got in office, which a lot of the situation is fueled by his rhetoric. Let's not forget that. How the police
really is
fueled by his rhetoric and backed up by what he stands for.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I see a lot of coon-ass black men, whether it was Kanye in the beginning and the attorney general down there in Kentucky, amongst others, who are cooning up to this goddamn president You know what I'm saying? Which enables this injustice to continually to happen. And who's
Yeah,
to say
but they,
this whole
it's
situation is a plot to incite racial war or race war?
all of this is about power and it's about money. That's all it boils down to. It's all about having the most power and having the most money. And if you're able to get your hand on it, whoever
Mm-hmm.
can, whoever can, because you can't have too many hands in the pot. But for those
Mm-hmm.
hands who are in the pot, they want to keep it in the pot.
Mm.
That's what it is. That's what it comes down to. Because you can't tell me that, like, I don't know. I like what you're saying right now. It just brings me back to the Breonna Taylor situation, and how they weren't able to find any of these officers guilty. It just goes to show how many how many of these officers who's behind them on this,
Mm-hmm.
and who was able to put something together, so that way there would be no charges that would stick to them,
Mm-hmm.
where they would have to do jail time over this big mistake. This wasn't a small mistake. This was a big, huge mistake.
Mm-hmm.
In my humble opinion,
So
anytime there's a loss of life, it is a catastrophe. It's not just a mistake. Like this is it's insane. It's insane that we are 2,000 years removed from a starting point in our calendar, and we're dealing with this type of bullshit. In a place that was supposedly set up to establish a whole bunch of quote unquote freedoms.
Mm-hmm.
freedom,
Because
freedom.
this doesn't seem like a very free country.
No,
It doesn't
Freedom
feel
for
like a
whom?
very free country.
Freedom for whom, though?
it's a facade. That's what it is. It's a
It
facade
really
of
is.
freedom. However, depending on where you stand, that's how you'll get a little bit of that freedom, depending on who you are, depending on your status, who you're associated with. You'll get a small piece of that freedom.
Mm.
And that's how it's set up.
And if you don't act right, you can get it all taken away from you.
Absolutely. Well, listen, this is the country we live in, America. America. But
America.
let me switch gears now. I mean, to now our own people having their own opinions about the situation. I saw a post on Facebook which really pissed me the fuck off, which I had to respond. In which the Facebook police has removed my comment off the post because they felt it was disrespectful. Not knowing that the actual post was disrespectful to a person who was slain by law enforcement because she was sleeping in her bed and she was black. I'm gonna read you guys this post. For the sake of the person who posted this, I'm not gonna say his name, but it's very disrespectful. All right, this is what he says. Hard truth: Breonna Taylor's real killer is Breonna Taylor. She chose to date a known drug dealer, not her first. She chose to live with him without marriage, knowing both the street and legal repercussions that comes with that lifestyle. She would be alive today if she made better choices. This should be a teaching moment for our young women. You're responsible for your choices, and choices have outcomes. There are always consequences to the choices that you make, especially when you choose to date a drug dealer, which is always a bad choice. Look no further than this very incident. It cost Breonna a career. She was fired from her EMT. She was fired from her EMT job long before the raid due to being implicated in the murder of a black man after a car rented in her name was connected to the victim. If the raid had been a successful one that night, instead of ending in tragedy, it would have cost her her freedom, and she'd be sitting in prison right now along with her boyfriend, ultimately costing her her life. Had she chosen to date a better quality of man, she'd still be alive and most likely thriving today. Choices have consequences, so please choose better, ladies.
That's
Now,
bullshit. Cassandra Bland was single, if I remember correctly.
And so much of that post is alleged. So
Listen,
whoever did that post, I don't think they did their homework. All of it was alleged because when was it? When does it say that? Like the so they're trying to say Kenneth Walker was a drug dealer.
that's this. This is
Because if
where.
he was a drug dealer, that would have came out that same night when he
That
was
would have been the
arrested.
first thing that they. Yep, that would have been
That
the
would have
first
been
thing
the
that they
first
jumped
thing they
on
would
them.
have put his whole. So that's a lie. Whoever wrote that post, they don't know what they're talking about. They're just talking out their ass
They
and
really
just
are.
making shit up so that way they can get like, you know.
And this is the
They're
problem.
they're
Like,
looking to
what?
trigger people. In my humble opinion,
Yeah,
someone who posts something like that is looking to trigger people. You know,
yeah.
and I
And
mean,
he's the clown.
let's just play devil's advocate for a second here. Let's just say all of that shit was true, and let's just say everything that that person said about Breonna Taylor and Breonna Taylor's situation was true. Are you going to tell me honestly that because of all of that, she deserved to lose her life?
It doesn't make right. It doesn't make
It
sense at
doesn't.
all
It really doesn't.
because by them doing that, it's actually putting a label on you as a person, as an individual.
Right.
So now we're all labeled as based on our choices. So you're saying because she chose whoever she chose to be in her life, she deserved to die because of his, like, by association kind of thing. Like, how would that
And
apply? If that's the, like, that doesn't even make sense.
the one thing I will agree with is that you are responsible for your choices, but I don't believe that her choices put her in that position to get herself killed. I don't think she woke up one morning and said, "Hey, you know what? I want to live on the wild side. You know,
Right.
I want to, you know, I want to rent a car out to a drug dealer and get caught up in this situation, and then I'm gonna go date this other drug dealer, and I'm gonna get caught up in that situation, and that's, you know, I hate to say
Who's
it,
the
but
fit?
I got relatives,
Mm-hmm.
particularly one who I'm not gonna name,
Mm-hmm.
but this individual is a preacher,
Mm-hmm.
and he's ordained, and a lot of times he comes off holier than thou art.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the first things you said, she chose to live with this man unmarried. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? Just because that doesn't fit into your core Christian values, you think that this person is beneath you or below you?
My thing about the post is who's to say that her name was probably stolen, her ID was probably stolen, and rented a car under her name from someone who
Right.
stole a credit card.
And
Who's
not
to,
only that, that's what I'm saying. Whoever did that post did not do their research, because according to what you mentioned earlier, didn't you say they had the ex-boyfriend, the drug dealer ex-boyfriend in custody before they even went to the house to
mm-hmm.
get the warrant to search the house, right? Let's say, for instance, the warrant they got was to search the house for the drugs because
Mm-hmm.
the drug dealer who was actually in custody told them that's where they have to go and that's where they will find the drug, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that is the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would, like, I just lost my train of thought.
Don't worry, don't worry. However,
Because this
I'll
shit
tell
is
you,
like,
I
that
did see
post got
that.
me a little tight right now. I can't believe they're trying to judge
well,
her.
the person who posted
Judge
that
her.
wants you to get tight about that. That's what I'm saying. That's the reason for rhetoric like that. It's triggering.
Yeah, but the
They want you to
information
get
they're
up in
putting
arms.
out there, there's some people who's actually gonna read this post and agree with it without really knowing all the information. They're posting things with false information, and other
Mm-hmm.
Welcome,
people reading it who's not gonna do the research is gonna be like, oh yeah, well then if that's the case, if she was with some drug dealer, then she deserved, what came to her. I mean, that's just,
welcome to the age of social media.
Keep in mind, I hear you, but keep in mind one thing. I'm not sure if they had the guy in custody. This is according to what I read off the comments off this particular post. how people was calling them out on not getting this information straight. That's what I got from those particular comments. So
Yeah,
I
but
think
hypothetically, let's say that was the case, right?
Mhm.
So why would that be, like, why would that justify her losing her life? You know, it doesn't. So the fact that they put that post saying, well, it's kind of like she reaped what she, what's that saying? You
You
reap
reap what
reap
you
what
what
you
you
sow.
sow.
sow. So it's kind of like they're saying she reaped what she sowed. She didn't deserve to die. She didn't deserve to have 6 bullets put in her
No.
for no reason, because she didn't even know why these people were there, didn't know
Especially
who
when
they
she wasn't
were.
even, especially when she wasn't shooting a gun, let alone holding one.
Right.
She was just laying on the couch, right?
Supposedly, yeah. No, they
And
said she
that's
got
another
shot in the
thing that
hallway.
that doesn't sit
Mm.
well with me, because if Kenneth Walker and Breonna Taylor, they were because according to him, he said they were watching a movie together, right?
Okay.
They were watching a movie together. It was like around midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that. My thing is, I don't understand how come he didn't even get any injuries at all. It seemed like Breonna was the target, because if it's dark in the apartment and we're
Mhm.
shooting, what was Breonna standing up? Is that why she was hit the most time and the boyfriend was on the ground shooting back? Like, so many loopholes, so many holes are in this story. I have so many questions, because it's the puzzle pieces are just not binding together. Because 32 shots, not one hit Kenneth Walker.
Mhm.
6 of them hit Breonna Taylor, and a couple of them went into the parallel apartment or whatever, the other apartment, and
Mhm.
some went wherever from outside in.
Some went out the damn balcony door. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then only one officer was injured by Kenneth Walker. They're saying by his gun.
Mhm.
It's like, what?
Mhm.
Something is not right, and they don't want us to know. There's some stuff they're covering up, and they don't want us to know about it. And that's what makes this story so frustrating, because you want
Mhm.
justice for that young lady, because she did not deserve to lose her life.
Right.
I wanted justice for her.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I already know how America is really set up.
Mhm.
So it was kind of like wishful thinking that, yes, they're going to at least put one of these officers in jail. One of them is going to get at least jail time. But at the end of the day,
But it's not
I
going to
kind
be
of
for her
knew, like,
murder.
oh, they're probably going to get off.
But
Nobody got jail time. One of them got fired,
Mhm.
and his bullet wasn't even in Breonna Taylor. And then the other 2, one
Basically,
got indicted because his bullets went to the other apartment or wherever
mhm.
it went. And
Basically,
then,
that officer took one for the team, basically. And it wasn't
yeah,
in the
it's
right book.
like,
They call that falling on your sword.
Mhm. So, like I said, I believe her. The attorneys for the family failed her. Because if I was an attorney for the family, granted, I'm getting paid. I'm going to get my money off a settlement. By the same token, I got to do right by the family. Have my own private investigators investigate the situation, investigate
right.
paperwork, interview all the officers that was involved, and find out the truth was what was going on. And like I purposely to say, I feel that I spoke to Ricky yesterday in regards to this. I feel it should not have been up to the Attorney General of Kentucky to try this case. It should have been up to the Supreme Court to try this case.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I
And it
think
should
maybe
be.
the Supreme Court would have looked at every evidence, because the fact that this warrant did not require those officers to have their body cameras on, or even to have body cameras on.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I don't know the laws of Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know how things, I don't know their laws. But
Mm-hmm.
if it is a state that requires officers to wear a body camera, but for this situation on the warrant, they were not required to. Why weren't they required to? Because at the end of the day, you're still barging into someone's home
Correct.
without them knowing who it is. And it's supposed
Correct.
to be no knock warrant means that we're gonna surprise you. We're
Mm-hmm.
surprising you. You don't know when we're coming. We're just gonna bust into your home at
Mm-hmm.
whatever time. And so why wouldn't they be required to have cameras on?
Correct.
Because that's to protect them and to protect the the so-called
Person. We
people
call them,
that they're
Civilians.
entering their home with, like,
let's call
Yeah.
them civilians because we don't know if a crime was committed or not. We call them civilians.
committed, right, the civilians, exactly.
And it's an ongoing problem, and no one seems to have an answer. Hopefully, I got to tell everybody, to all my people, all my fans watching True Players podcast, November 3rd, get your ass in that ballot. Get your ass in that voting booth. Don't mail your shit in. Go in there, stand online with your fucking mask on, and vote.
Yep.
Plain and
Please
simple.
go out and vote. I mean, it's not like it's gonna change anything. Things are not gonna change overnight,
Mm-hmm.
but please go out and vote so that way we can get the right people into office. They're not going to be able to do everything that we're requesting. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of these changes, we've been asking for these changes for how many years now, but
Mm-hmm.
we need to go out and vote. We have that power now. We are more educated on voting, because back in those days, back in those old time days, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Black people didn't go out and vote because they felt like regardless to whether they vote or not, nothing is really going to change. But now we know there's power in voting, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these Republicans understand that we are more educated as minorities. We're more educated on the voting process,
Mm-hmm.
and we're speaking out more
Mm-hmm.
about things, changes that we expect in our communities, and who's going to provide those changes. And if you're not going to provide these changes, then you're not going to get our vote.
Absolutely. Another thing too. We got to go out and vote, and to at least put into work what we want to happen. Even though the electoral college is nothing but a presidential selection committee. That's what I call the electoral college. That's what we've seen over
Mm-hmm.
the past few elections. Nothing but a presidential selection committee.
Yeah,
So,
because the last few elections were nothing but a slap in the face. The last few
Mm-hmm.
elections, they actually showed us the results and showed us that the people who got the most votes did not become president. And it is very disheartening to look at that. Hillary Clinton got more votes. That dude, Mitt Romney, got more votes. That it goes all the way back to Al
Wait
Gore
a
and
minute, Hillary
Bush.
Clinton got more votes?
Hillary Clinton got a lot more votes. She got a lot more votes. But because of the way the Electoral College is set up, Donald Trump was awarded more Electoral College points. But let's go all the way. Let's go all the way back to Bush, Bush
Mm-hmm.
Jr. Al Gore had more votes, regardless of the whole recount situation that was going on in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Al Gore already had more
More votes.
votes.
Yeah, I remember
Even if
that.
even if everybody in Florida voted for Bush, Gore would have won democratically speaking. But we
Mm-hmm.
don't have a democratic election set up for our president. We have democratic elections set up for our governors, for our mayors, and for other public positions. But we do not have a democratic election set up for our president. So even though, and it was a sad day for America when Gore conceded, because of the whole, I don't want to drag this out and hold up the political process. No, that's why we have the political process. You were
Right.
supposed to hold it up. You were supposed to drag it out. That was
Yeah.
your responsibility as the person that was running for president.
Right.
mm-hmm.
Al Gore should have been our president. And what a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people don't remember, because I remember this shit. I was living down here when it happened. We
Mm-hmm.
rioted. George W. Bush did not take the walk from the White House to the Capitol building. It's like a 5-block walk. It's a little parade that they have set up. George
Mhm.
Bush could not take that walk because we rioted. We were angry as hell. We threw bricks. We threw shit at him. We did not want that man president. But all of a sudden, come next September, somebody flew planes in the buildings, and oh my God, we're all American again, and we all need to band up, and we all need to band together and fight this common
This,
enemy. And
this,
we're just gonna forget about that. And every election since then, they have thrown it in our face and given us the
mhm.
numbers to show us, yeah, you know what, you may have voted for this person, but the electoral college has picked that person.
And that's why a lot of times you see, based on that information, this country is not a real democracy. It's
It's
really
not. It's a
not.
hybrid. It's a hybrid. It's a hybrid government.
Yeah, it's not. It's not a real democracy
That's
because
what
See,
they teach you at
regardless,
the time.
at the same time, democracy doesn't always work because we got three of us in this conversation here, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we take a vote on what we want to eat for dessert, and the two of you vote that you want strawberry sundaes, and
mhm,
I
Mm-hmm.
vote that I want a banana split,
Mm-hmm.
is it fair to me to be forced to eat strawberries because you two voted for it? I'm allergic to strawberries. They'll close up my throat.
Mm-hmm.
You
mhm,
see, democracy isn't always fair. I get
Mm-hmm.
that. I understand that. But if you're going to pretend to be a democracy, if you're going to tell the world that you're a democracy, how is everything about you democratic except for how you choose your leader?
right.
That doesn't make sense. That's
It doesn't.
hypocritical. It's
Hmm.
hypocritical.
But yeah, we'll go into other countries say you're not you're a communist, you're a dictator and all that shit and
Hmm.
fuck up their country.
I,
I know.
I remember, but before memes, the big thing was political cartoons, and I remember there was a political cartoon in the Baltimore Sun where the U.S. troops were in Iraq, and uh, it's like they were given a presentation on a chalkboard, and you see the little the Arab Iraqi um, freedom fighters or whatever you or military men, and they're like, you know what? No, thank you. We'll keep doing regular democracy because
Mm-hmm.
we like the way that works. Because what we have is not democracy.
Right.
I
No.
mean, there are democratic
Not
aspects.
real.
You go out and you vote for your attorney general. You go out and you vote for your senator. It's a
You,
democratic vote.
you vote for the assemblyman. You, yeah, you.
Right.
That's
That's a democratic vote. Why isn't the president a democratic vote? If more people vote for Dominic than me, why isn't Dominic the president?
hmm
That's
that is true. That is true because I think that's another thing because I forgot about the electoral votes. The electoral votes. That's what makes the real big difference. Now, what I'm questioning is okay, so the electoral votes is based on the amount of senators each state has. Is that correct?
It's either senators or
delegates.
congressmen. It's one of the two, something like that. But yeah, but basically, yeah.
So if one state has two senators or congressmen who who voted, let's say they voted Republican, and then the other state only has one who voted Democrat, at the end of the day, it's still rigged because this one has two, and both of them voted for, the other side, like for Republican.
Now
So
you're
it's
beginning
not
to
fair either
understand my
way.
frustration. Now you're beginning to understand my frustration with the
Yeah,
whole
because there
voting
are
for
certain
president.
states that will have two representatives and some that only has one.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's never gonna be fair.
Nope.
My thing is too. My thing is too. If this guy loses, because we all know there's certain people in the Republican Party who will not vote for him.
Well, they might say on the outside they're not gonna vote for him, but behind the booth, we really don't know. Because I know plenty of people who
Mm-hmm.
said they were not, that they were not voting for Trump, and come to find out they voted for Trump. So they could say whatever they want.
True, but this is the key thing where I believe him now because it's cost them seats in the Senate and it's cost them seats in the House of Representatives. They can't afford that. They can't afford to lose any more seats. Can't afford to lose any more seats.
Mm-hmm.
This dude is costing them seats in the seats dramatically, you know. And
Well, it says a lot when your own party doesn't have your full support.
Yeah, but remember, at the end of the day, money talks. Okay, and President 45, I'm sure he has a lot of that. So he can disagree. His Senate and the people in the seats can disagree with him all they want. If he wants to flaunt that money in front of them, make him an offer, make all of them an offer that he can, because in his mindset, he can buy anything he wants.
yeah, and then file Chapter 11 after.
Exactly. So,
And you know
yeah,
what? In
and
all
he got away
honesty,
with it.
in all honesty, that's what scares me about the other dude because he's another rich old white man who has a track record of not necessarily always being for us as well. And
Who,
it
And
seems like
Biden?
people yes, it seems like people are going after the lesser of two evils.
like we did last election.
Listen, I was talking to my coworker the other day about this because we were talking about like the presidency and stuff and going out to vote. And I said, this is basically a lose-lose situation. It's like who, you kind of have the balancing beam and you're like, who's the worst? Like, because even though they make it seem like the Democratic Party is for the minorities community and things like that, a lot of the Democratic parties who are in office, I don't feel like they do everything that they can do for a lot of these communities that are predominantly Black or Spanish when they are in office, And so even if we voted for Biden, let's say Biden won the presidency, he's probably a little bit better than Trump, but the changes that we're asking, is he going to be able to implement those changes?
Is he going to even want to implement those changes?
Exactly. Take on those challenges. I know he's probably, as far as I can see, he looked like he's on his deathbed. Like this guy, I don't even,
listen,
let me not even get into that.
listen. His vice
It's
president.
like
That is
that was
another
the best
podcast.
candidate.
Listen. I'm gonna say one thing. We're gonna talk about this in another podcast. His Vice President Miss Kamala Harris, has indicted her own people, and the only time she claims she's Black is when she's going to an AKA meeting.
Wow.
Well, you know what? You want to know what she the process she's taking the process on. Let me fake it until I make it. So she has to fake as if like she's not down. Depending on who she's around, and then when it really counts, when it's when the cameras are out, and then that's when yes, I'm Black. I'm Black, blacker than Black and Black.
Did she say she was Indian?
That's how a lot of these these politicians who
Yeah,
are Black, that's how they
she's
portray
like half
themselves.
Yardy, half Indian. I mean, and she, but I mean, in all honesty,
It's mute.
it's a beautiful thing to be of multiple cultures because that just is an example of the fact that this country is a
Integration.
cultural melting pot.
Integration.
It
She
gives you
just
a
Oh,
better perspective from different
not just
angles.
integration, not just integration. I mean, this country is a cultural melting pot.
It is. Mm-hmm.
You know, and to see somebody who has multiple cultures or comes from a background of multiple cultures is an example of that. That doesn't necessarily make them the best choice, or it doesn't necessarily make them a good person, but it does give some form of representation in my humble opinion. You
No,
know,
I agree with that part. That is the positive part about it. It does give us a sense of representation and hopefully um with her voice will be able to give some of her other colleagues a different perspective on how most Americans live their life and the things, certain things and what it is that we want, the kind of equality that we're talking about, and things like that. But at the same time, if what Dom is saying is true, where depending on where she stands or where she is, it's like she's representing something else, then I don't know. I don't know how that would work. If is she only doing that because of her having the ticket for the vice presidency, and she feels like she has to, that's the route that she has to take?
Maybe, but my thing
Well,
is my thing is, we've started to interrupt you, Ricky. My thing is, when you're running for office, like president, you should never announce that you're going to take a woman as your vice president. That's something that should be kept behind closed doors. Keep your mouth until it actually happens. What it is, you just open yourself up to a whole lot of. If you choose the wrong one, you may end up losing the election because you chose the wrong one.
Oh, you mean like he pre-announced it?
You pre-announced that he's going to choose a woman.
He did.
Yeah, but the
He
reason
did. In
we
fact,
all know this is a
He announced it
tactic.
way back. He announced it way back during the what was it?
During
The primary.
preliminaries.
Yeah.
The thing
Then
that
he said if I run, I'm going to be running with a woman. He stated
Oh
that
yeah, because
emphatically.
that's when people thought that he was gonna have Michelle.
Yep. And Michelle
Okay.
shut that shit down. Like, I don't want no parts of that.
Yeah. And I don't blame her.
that was
I don't blame her.
that was
But,
the one.
but you know what I
She didn't
do
want it.
hope? I do hope that Camilla, is that her name?
Kamala.
Camilla, yeah.
I
Kamala.
do hope
Kamala.
that, oh, Pamela?
Kamala.
Oh, Kamala. Okay. I do hope that Michelle will be able to consult her, because Michelle was, being a first lady, she saw a lot of things. As the first lady, I'm sure she saw a lot of things that she couldn't really have an opinion or speak on, because she would let her husband do all of the speaking because he was the president. But hopefully she will have Michelle as a consultant for her, where to help her move in certain ways or educate her on certain things that she could do to improve, like the way the Black community is taken care of when politicians go into office. Because that's one of the main problems, is that once they get into office, they forget who the majority of the votes that got them there, which was the minority votes. Mm-hmm. And it's like they forget what they promised, what they were supposed to be doing. And I remember a couple of years ago when it was during the when they were trying to choose whether it was Hillary and oh my God, what was his name?
Bernie,
right? When they were trying to make the choices between the two, I remember I saw an interview with Bernie on there, and he said that the way certain things are set up, they are set up as packages. So there's certain packages that has certain criterias. So in those criterias, if you know that you're taking on this package, out of the 10 criterias that are listed, you will probably only be able to change like 4 things. So one of the packages he chose had something to do with the gun laws. And he chose one where I forgot exactly what it entailed, but he was like, those are the choices. That's the problem, because some of these packages have different things on it. And then that's how, once you get into office, you can only tackle but a few. And that's how some of the communities get left behind. That's how some communities, some schools and things like that, they don't get the money that they're supposed to get because of, money is going towards this stupidness,
What I call that is selective socialism.
You can definitely call it that. Selective, yeah.
And that's the whole argument why he could not win a presidential nomination because they consider him a socialist. But yeah, we practice socialism on every second of the day.
We do, because your public school systems are socialism. Your fire departments are socialism. Your EMTs is socialism. You know,
Hospital socialism.
your free school breakfast is socialism. You know, like these are aspects of socialism. Socialism isn't necessarily the enemy, and that goes back to what I was saying about this country having a hybrid government. We take aspects of socialism, we take aspects of the republics, we take aspects of democracies, and we put them all together, and we call it the United States.
You know, don't forget they aspects of communism too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because
So that'll be a whole nother podcast that we would have to have a grand audience. I hope to do that podcast live. We're gonna save that for another podcast because we could be on here all night with that shit. And we're gonna fill you guys in, fill the fans of what's going on with next podcast. I hope to speak about the marriage. A segment of marriage will be a 3-part episode. First episode will be my own opinion. Second opinion will be with my co-host joining in on the second one. The third one is whatever we come up with after that. I want to speak about schooling when it comes to COVID-19. I want to have because I have Carmina on the next one. She has children that she has to go to school. I'm gonna also bring in a school teacher who also has to who works in the school system and her opinion in regards to the situation about sending kids to homeschool or sending them into school considering what the COVID situation is. That's gonna be another big episode that we're gonna talk about. Get the parents involved and things like that because it's very important because we have young kids who are being forced to go back into school with this COVID still running wild, and it's not about the kids getting sick of COVID. It's what they bring back home to their parents, to their grandparents, or their great grandparents that may affect them. And how does that?
And you know what? On the flip side of that, we also got kids that are being sent home with laptops and tablets and being expected to do things that their parents don't even understand how to do.
Right.
I heard of a PowerPoint presentation with some math problems presented, and the instructions were to put the answers in the PowerPoint presentation and then upload it and send it back to the school. I understand that we live in the digital age, but it seems like the parents are also the ones that are in school because now they have to learn how to, and this was a third grader that had to do this. A third grader was expected to not only put in the answers but figure out how to save that PowerPoint presentation and then re-upload it back and then send it back to the school. You know, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for advancing and teaching, but if you haven't taught the child how to do that, how do you
to
expect them to be
navigate
able to right? It's kind of like those intelligence equivalency tests, those IQ tests. You know, it's biased. You know, if you're in a position where you don't have any type of access to fresh fruits and vegetables, and I'm presenting you with a problem about, well, Johnny has 12 apples and, you know, Jane takes 2, the kid's sitting there wondering, like, what the fuck is an apple and not even paying attention to the question. You know what I'm saying? Like, it seems like they're putting some kids in a position to just fail.
And let
You
me
know,
tell you
and
something.
then on your side, well, what you were saying, it seems like they're putting kids in a position to just get sick and die. I hate to say it like that, but that's how it feels.
But just let me tell you something about this whole iPad, laptop, and things like that. Some of these teachers don't even know how to navigate these
Nope.
Technologies either.
Nope.
Okay? They don't even know what the child could have a simple question, and they're like, oh, well, if you don't see it, then we'll have to call the IT desk or the IT person, like something simple. And it's like, so if the teachers don't even know how to use these devices, and then you're sending these devices home with the kids, you didn't even show them how to navigate through the device, and you're expecting the parents to know. And mind you, a lot of these teachers are a little bit younger than the parents are.
Yep.
So if they can't figure out how to work the laptop or how to work the iPads, and the child has a question on the assignment, yeah, it's like you're setting them up to fail, because once they don't turn in the assignment, that's considered a non-participation or a 0.
Yeah.
This whole thing is like, it's a mess. That's another conversation. I have plenty to say about that.
Listen, I'm
2020 has been a hell of a year.
we're just waiting for it to end, and let's hope there's some light at the end of the tunnel here, and we just call it one bad year and call it one bad year and move on to back to regular scheduled programming, hopefully with a new president on
Hopefully,
January 20th.
with some real changes. Hopefully with some real changes, because so much has happened this year. And I feel like a lot of people's eyes, a lot of people who had wool over their eyes, a lot of them are seeing from a different, from a different realm, or whatever you want to call it, from a different eye, maybe from their third eye, let's say it like that. Maybe a lot of people are opening their eyes more to what's really going on. And I'm just hoping that 2021 will bring a lot of positive changes, because 2020 unveiled so many dysfunctions, so many like things that was undercovers, you can say. And
a lot of people have found themselves in that position where what was that lady's name? I think her name was Jane Elliott, where she sat down with a group of white people and said, hey, look, these are the things that black people go through, and this is how they have to live. And if you feel that if you feel that you don't have a privileged life, stand up. And nobody stood up. She said, like, she broke that down to like a group of white people and said, look, this is what black people are going through. This is what you would have to deal with if you were a black person. And if you, at the end of her little class or her little session or a little seminar, she said, if you don't feel like you're living a privileged life, stand up. And nobody stood up. And there's a lot of people I feel that are in that position now, where their eyes are open now, where they honestly, because of the fact that they've lived under this umbrella of privilege, they honestly didn't see it. They honestly didn't know it.
Right.
They can't ignore it now. It's
and
in
for
their
those
face.
and for those who do understand it and they do see it, but they choose not to acknowledge it, because they don't want their privileged life to be disturbed.
Yep.
Those are the other ones who are like, well, if they didn't do this, those are the ones who are justifying everything, even though they know it's wrong.
Yeah.
So, another podcast for that as well, guys. We're gonna end the podcast right. We're gonna end the podcast right now. Any final words from you two before we end the podcast?
The only thing I want to say is very unfortunate that we didn't, that Breonna Taylor and the family didn't get the real justice that they deserved in this situation, and the changes that us as a community, as minorities, the changes that we're looking for is really to hold these police officers accountable when they do something that's unjust, that's not just. Because when they are violating the law, they should be held accountable for violating the law, regardless to what it is. And those are the changes that we're looking for, going forward, because we don't want to see these same things keep happening, and it keeps happening to Black people.
Mm-hmm. Ricky?
So,
Stop marching on Main Street. March on your Capitol buildings, march on your police stations, march on your courthouses. You want to see some change, you got to stop asking for it and make the change happen.
Got you. My final words is real simple. Don't fall for the bullshit. Don't fall for the trap. Keep your sanity pure. If a cop does some as this, don't not retaliate at the cop. It's not your job to do that. There's a higher power that will take advantage. Will take care of that for you. Don't go shoot at cops, make it a worse situation where it becomes a race war. We don't need that right now. Because if we have a race war, everyone loses.
mm-hmm.
Everyone loses. And as far as that guy with that post that I read out during the podcast, this is an example of a Black man who doesn't know how to protect his Black queen. Okay? She's not responsible for her death. Death happened because a police officer came in the house and shot her in her household. It has nothing to do with her choice of men. And nothing to do with her with who she was. It had nothing to do with the fact that she got fired, according to you, from her EMT job. Actually, according to the truth, that she still had her EMT job. Anyway, and she was studying to become a nurse as well, mind you. So, we as Black men, we as minority men, we got to continue to protect our Black queens here and stop criminalizing them as victims because of the choice that they make. Yes, it is true that men and women are both a consequence of their preference. Yes, our decisions, our preferences, that is the case, but this is not the case in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
So on that note, you can watch this podcast on my YouTube channel, True Players Podcast. Listen to it audioly on Joey G Radio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, and on TuneIn Radio. And any feedback, comments, complaints, you can definitely email me at trueplayerspodcast@gmail.com, which is TRUPLAYAZ podcast@gmail.com. It's your man Big Dom. I'm going to sign off for Ricky and Carmine. Peace.
Peace.
All right, bye.
Black Rizzy's naturally a true player. With my king crawl, he's like a soothsayer. Shout out to Big Dom, he's a true player. We even took gourmet, we be soufflaying. So who's playing? We talk about everything. Live, from the light to the heavy things. Live on podcast, we gon' help your time pass. We well connected, way better than Comcast. No cap, why? Cause we stay woke in our podcast.